Hey, everybody. Welcome to the BA Zone's pre-show. We've got 2 minutes to go before we get on with tonight's show. We're going to be talking about file feeds, and importing and exporting and what you need to know, but the questions to ask, the right questions to ask gets you the information that you need. So hope everybody's having a great day today. I got a lot of work done today. It was pretty productive. And I'm loving the fact that it's still light out, at a certain hour, so that I don't feel like I'm walking the dog when I get home from work really late at night or something. And it's kind of changes your whole affect. So, we kind of we're feeling up, we're feeling ready for spring type of thing. I can't wait. So hopefully you're having a fantastic spring too. And just give us a minute here. We're just collecting a few other little thoughts and things, and we'll get right going. Put on those fuzzy slippers. Get that cup of tea, get that cup of coffee, and relax. All righty. File feeds. Tonight's topic. So tag a friend. Anybody interested? Any might be interested in this type of information. And even if they just want to hang out with us and, chat, make comments, learn something new. Kind of always fun just hanging out with you guys. We appreciate the fact that you choose us to hang out with. That's fantastic. Just grow the community. And here we go. Hey, hey, hey. It is 8 o'clock, everybody, and welcome to the BA Zone live show. Tonight, we're going to get going really quickly here. Tonight, we're going to be talking about file feeds and how companies exchange files electronically. And as a BA, the questions you need to ask in order to document the whole process and give your innate, that opinion that we all have on how things should be done. So if you have any questions or comments, or you just want to chat during the show, don't be shy. Just jump right in, and I'll try not to screw up your name too badly. It's a thing. I can't help it. I really do try. But anyway, I'm Marianne Morrison, and Kathleen Sinnott is managing the production booth, and together we are the BA Zone. So make yourself comfortable, relax, open up your mind while Kathleen plays the intro. Go ahead, Kath. Okay, let's get right into it. So how do you go about documenting file feeds or a file feed project? First of all, you have to understand what they're talking about, right? So in this case, we're talking about, the electronic interchange of business information in the form of files using a standardized format and a process which allows one company to send information to another company electronically. So it's the importing and exporting of files. So when we're talking about the importing of files from another company or a source, it's the ability to communicate with that other company for the purpose of receiving and recognizing and converting one or more file feeds into a format that can be used in the application that you're importing the information into. And exporting is the obvious, the opposite, I should say. And that's the process of, again, formatting data for the purpose of sending one or more files to a company so that that company can then import those files. So it's a little circular thing. So maybe you worked for a company, a good example, that imports files into an application for the purpose of identifying a list of people that are eligible maybe to receive some free educational material. So once you have a list or a file of those eligible people, the file can then be exported to maybe a fulfillment house that sends each person the free material. And they, in addition to that, may send you back another file that confirms the fact that that material was sent. So that's sort of like the beauty of this complete electronic data interchange loop. A beautiful thing when it works, right? So as a BA, you're going to at least make sure that all of the steps to the solution, are documented. It's up to everyone to make it work, right? But where do you start? So you kind of start with, you need to know what are the right questions to ask. And Kathleen and I talk about this a lot. Having an understanding what to ask is extremely important. I mean, you can definitely document what people are saying, but if you're really not aware of what you should be asking, there's the potential to miss a tremendous amount of information. And that's the first place you start, is knowing what to ask. And we're going to walk you through some of those questions. And again, this is just sort of the tip of the iceberg when it comes to this type of documentation, but we're going to take it in baby steps. Okay. So the first thing you really want to understand when you're talking about exchanging files back and forth is, what is the information that you need and why, right? So how is it going to be used, the data? What is the end game for it? Is it an operational type of need? Maybe prospective data mining or retrospective trends or marketing, etc. So where is that information going to display? Is it going to be at an application's page level, a dashboard, a report? This will give you a clue as to how often the information needs to be updated and what you're going to be doing. So that's the first thing, is to understand the purpose of what we're going to be doing with this data, because that drives a lot of the downward stream of steps, the successive steps that you're going to be doing. So what decisions drive the need for the files? What information or data do you need? What are the sources of this information? What types of information are involved? Maybe you've contracted with an insurance company or an insurance carrier to provide a disease management program that educates patients. Again, we depend a lot on the healthcare because we've been in it so long. But for that type of thing, you may need hospital intake files, discharge and finance files to identify potential patients. You might need clinical files to determine the level of education they might need. And you might need physician files, right? So what you're going to do with this information is going to drive the number of files and the type of files that you're going to need in order to have a successful launch of this data interchange. So once you identify sort of what you're going to be doing with the data, and those are some of the high-level questions to ask, you're going to want to talk about scope. So are the files going to be used at an enterprise level, across all systems in the organization? Or are they going to just be used at maybe a system level, maybe one or two systems, or maybe a major functionality or a major part of a particular application? Are there going to be import and export files? Or are we just sort of going to have one import and no exports, or vice versa? Again, will there be, with all of this data, when you first start up, when you first ramp up, will there be an initial data migration, right? A big lump of data coming in sort of to set up the database in the back end? Are we going to load historical data? How far back are we going to load that historical data? So are there also going to be third-party processes in place? Like I was talking about that fulfillment example, a fulfillment house. Are we going to have some type of external events or external companies that are going to be involved with this flow of data? And all of these questions sort of define the scope. How big is this going to be? How many different exchanges are we going to need? So these are sort of those high-level questions that you want to ask. Then you want to take a look at constraints. And this is the same as if we were creating any other type of requirements document, right? We're going to look at the constraints around what's going on. Specifically, when we're talking about data exchanges, we're talking about constraints on how we import and export the files, right? If it's healthcare, are there certain HIPAA rules in place governance that we have to follow? HIPAA is the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. Or are you following some kind of SOC protocols, service organizational controls? Those are the folks that audit service organizations to make sure you have security and availability and process integrity, et cetera, confidentiality, and privacy. So there are all of these rules, whether they be government imposed, federal or industry rules that you may have to comply with. And that will also drive some of this process and how you have to set it up. So that's just sort of a high level overview. And I'm just going to take a quick little break here. Oops, and see make sure we're okay in what's going on here. And we are. And I also want to take this opportunity as I bounce around. Sorry. I do want to take this opportunity to welcome all of our newcomers. Yay! And invite everyone to sign up for our mailing list so you can be the first to find out about upcoming events, classes, and free stuff. We really take minimal information. We don't do anything with the information. And if you also follow us, you can like and follow us on Facebook. And if you're on YouTube, you can subscribe and hit the bell icon, and you'll get notified when we go live. So join our community, and we'd love to have you and help us make it a place where we can share our experiences and give each other a hand, because that's what it's all about. Okay, enough. That was just a little commercial break in case you needed to sip something or scratch something. Okay, what are some of the other questions? So you've got all of this high level, scope and constraint and the information that you need. So then we actually start to get into file and file formats. So, at a very high level, you want to identify how many files are we talking about as far as importing or exporting? What type of data do they contain? And I'm not going to go into a full data mapping here, because that's an entirely different show. But what type of data at a high level will they contain? And what type of files are they going to be? Are they going to be data files? Are they going to be spreadsheets? Are they going to be text files, graphic files, video or audio files? So you want to identify that at a very high level. And then how will those files be transferred securely between the entities, between the parties, right? What transfer protocol will be used to keep the data secure and safe during its transmission between the import and the export process? So, and some of those, and there are quite a few of them, but some of the big ones are you going to use FTP, which is, file transfer protocol, SFTP, secure file transfer protocol, VPN, a virtual private network, HTTP, hypertext transfer protocol. I mean, you can go in depth into each one of these. That's just to name a few. But that's what they're talking about. Protocols is making sure that data stays safe as it moves along. And that's some of the questions you want to ask the DBAs, the database administrators, how that's going to be set up, what we're going to use, and document that, okay? And then as part of that also, you want to find out and define how will the transfer of data be initiated? So will the request for the transmission of the data be initiated by the receiver of the data? Sometimes they call that a pull or a get. Or will the transmission be pushed to a client server? So it's that, is it going to be pulled or get, or is it going to be pushed? And what is going to be the frequency of doing that? How often should the information be imported and or exported? We're talking here about frequency. It's all about timelines, getting the users the right information at the right time before it becomes old data and historical data and useless, or except unless you're looking at retrospective sort of stuff. But that frequency, how often, and a lot of it is going to be driven by the business that you're in and how quickly people need that data to move it through. Is that frequency that you're going to talk is going to be on demand? Is somebody going to hit a button and say, I need that information now, and somehow it's magically going to be transferred? Is it going to be transactional based on some type of status change or action? Is it going to be done in batch? Is it going to be done every 15 minutes? Is it going to be done every hour, once a day, twice a day, weekly, biweekly, monthly, etc.? So that's frequency. And the frequency may be different if you have, but it may be different depending on the files that you have. So you may be getting 10 files. It's not just one file that's typically transferred back and forth. It's multiple files to enable people to do things. So they each may have their own frequency. Along with frequency, you want to ask, what is the timing? They sometimes call it the offset. Based on the frequency, when should the processing of the files begin? And typically, when we're talking about importing jobs, a lot of times you'll find that it's off peak hours, like it's during times that users are not using it, because it takes a lot of drain on the database and the speed at which the application responds. So a lot of times those type of jobs are done off hours. And speaking of off hours, let's just take a quick second, Kathleen, and throw up where you can find us on the screen. I do have to change that phraseology. But anyway, you can follow us on the BA Zone, thebazone.com. We're on Twitter at the BA Zone, Instagram.com at the BA Zone, Periscope, periscope.tv, the BA Zone, Facebook, facebook.com, the BA Zone, and youtube.com, the BA Zone. And if we are following on any more places, I'm going to have to get oxygen, because it just takes a long time to rip through all of those. Okay, but I digress. All righty. So the last thing that I just want to talk about is one of the bigger pieces that a lot of people may leave up to the database administrators, but it's a good idea for the business analysts to document this as well. And that is, how are these files going to be managed in an ongoing basis? So it's just not a one and done. Some files, like the historical files, may be a one and done, but these are files that are going to be coming in, every so often, or weekly, daily, whatever. So from that perspective, are those jobs going to be kicked off manually by a human, or is it going to be an auto kickoff, of an import-export job? What happens when the job fails? And they will fail. They do fail, absolutely. And they fail for a number of reasons. Some of the reasons that are beyond your control, which happens quite frequently, is the sender of the files has updated or changed something and hasn't notified anyone. And so that particular, could be a field that was added or removed, and all of a sudden the job fails. It could be a missing file. The file is just not there today. There could be data issues. You want to document things to make sure that can a field have a null value, or what happens when data is missing, from a row level, or if the data is dirty or corrupt in the file. And will there be a separate process to address this data or lack of data? Are we going to take that data that's corrupt or dirty and send it someplace else in the application, potentially for a human to look at, to see if it can be, cleaned or scrubbed and then put back into the process? Are we also going to, you want to document if they're also going to have messaging or alerts that will notify someone when things go wrong? And how is that process going to work? And what is the QA process, quality assurance? How long do you retain or are required to retain the raw data in these files? It can take up a lot of computer space, right? So you definitely want to document those type of things. So it's just not about, here's the files, they're going here, they're going through this protocol, but all of these other things about managing the process of itself, and to document that will help tremendously. So you can see there are a lot of steps involved in setting up file feeds, and a lot of moving parts to the document and the process, no pun intended. And we haven't even begun to talk about the actual data mapping of the files into your application, or making sure you create a good file format to export information. And as I said, we'll save that for another show. But those are just some of the very high level steps. And we hope this show gets you moving in the right direction, and that you now feel a little more comfortable and confident as to what types of questions to ask around EDI. And remember, when in doubt, diagram it out. Visualizing the movement of data will help ensure that you're capturing and communicating all the individual components and understand the bigger picture, and everybody understands the bigger picture. So I think that's it for tonight. I'm just going to check in one more time. Oh, hey, Tony. Tony the BA is around, hanging around. How you doing, Tony? Good to see you. If you haven't checked out Tony's site, please do so. You're starting to become a regular, Tony, which is okay. We love it. We love it. So I think we're good. Again, if you have any other questions or comments on any of this subject or any other subjects, just go to thebazone.com, drop us a line. And again, if you have any ideas for shows or you'd like us to see a particular topic that we could review for you, don't hesitate. A lot of the great shows that we've done have come directly from you guys. So again, thanks for stopping by. And I always hesitate here. I sort of drag. I know it sounds like I'm dragging a little bit because sometimes I cut off too quickly just as somebody says something, and I'm trying not to do that. So it's like, doing this in show business, just stretch it a little bit. But I think we're okay tonight. And again, feel free to drop us a line. And thanks for joining. Have a great night, everybody. Take care. Kathleen, you can take us out.